Hey guys, Charai5 here, and today we are starting cutesy week, or I don't know what we'll end up calling this. I guess cutesy week is what we have so far, and we are starting off with Jack and Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas, or The Nightmare Before Christmas. I can never remember which one it is. But as I said, I think in the last video, this movie, I think, has reached sort of like cult status levels in terms of how much people like this film. When I was a kid, I don't remember this movie really being a thing. It wasn't really until I moved to Mexico that I came to know this film. And you'd think that I would have known it because I grew up with James and the Giant Peach. And that was a film that I think came out after Nightmare. But I didn't really know about the movie at all until I moved to Mexico, and some of my cousins were actually really, really in love with the film. And in Mexico, this movie is loved a lot, so much so that like TV stations will play this movie even when it's not anywhere near Halloween or Christmas time. It's nothing like too repetitive or anything, but you will catch the movie, sometimes when the seasons aren't anywhere close. That being said, I was never really interested in watching it. I don't know. There was something about the visual style about it that I wasn't all too keen about, which is weird considering that I did like James and the Giant Peach, but then again, it's been years since I've actually watched that film. I just remember liking it a lot, and I think Jack Skellington actually makes a cameo in that movie. But I believe, contrary to popular belief, that movie was directed by Tim Burton, whereas Nightmare actually had no involvement from Tim Burton at all, aside from the fact that he wrote the poem which the movie was based off of. But I don't think he really had anything to do with the film itself, because I know he wasn't the director, but he might have been the producer? I don't remember. But however, it is still credited as, Tim Burton Presents A Nightmare Before Christmas. And eventually I did get around to watching it, and I did like it. I did end up really enjoying the film, probably not as much as a lot of other people did. And for some reason, again, when I was younger and still living in the States, I don't remember people talking about this movie at all. Again, as I said, I didn't really know about this film until I moved to Mexico. That's just how little people talked about it. And I don't think that it was from a lack of knowledge from the movie. I'm sure people knew about it. It's just people didn't really talk about it. And people didn't really use or draw the designs, at least not that I saw. And nowadays, this pairing, or at least Jack Skellington certainly, but this pairing is everywhere. A lot of people you'd see draw them together, or get tattoos of them, or just. I don't understand why that is. I'm not saying that it's bad that they're doing it, or that it's undeserved. It's just I don't understand why suddenly the movie came back into public conscious. I know that there was a time, I think it was for like the movie's 20th anniversary, something like that. A lot of musical artists who were popular at the time recorded songs based on it. I remember Marilyn Manson did a cover of This Is Halloween, which I really, really enjoyed, along with Fall Out Boy's What's This? Both of those were songs that I actually really did end up loving. Those were the only two, because I don't remember if anyone else did any of the other songs, and if they did, then I don't think I've ever listened to them. In terms of what I consider the movie to be, because a lot of people can consider it to be a mix of Halloween and Christmas, but though I don't think anyone really does, because the focus is so split, right? Because at the beginning it's purely about Halloween, and later on in the film it's purely about Christmas, with obviously Halloween influence. But I think no one has really reached a consensus as to what this film can be classified as. If it's a mixture of both, or is it more inclined towards one than the other? I'd say it's probably more inclined towards Halloween than it is Christmas, because it's kind of like bastardizing Christmas a bit, and giving it that spooky and eerie sort of touch. which I do like. I like that approach because it's such a bizarre idea, right? That there exists like a forest where these holidays, exist in their own world. Like, they don't coexist. They each have their own little world, and their lives are dedicated to planning out how they're going to celebrate the holiday, which to me is kind of weird because when you think about it, the opening sequence, which is beautifully animated, by the way, stop motion never really interested me as a kid, but now that I'm older, I appreciate it so much because I know the hard work that goes into stop motion. Like, not just animation in general, but specifically stop motion. Like, it's incredible how much work and how much patience and dedication goes into that. The opening sequence is beautifully animated, but when you think about it, it's like, what, do they just do this every Halloween? Like, they celebrate it with a song and that's it? Halloween's just over, it just ends? Like, you don't do anything else special with it? Like, you would think that the celebration would go on for the whole day, but they just do the one, like, 3 to 5 minute song and then Halloween's over. Just got to start planning for next year. I think that's really weird. And I don't think anyone's ever really thought about that before. But I don't know. And I don't know how things are really handled in Christmas Town, because we see that Jack goes to Christmas Town and the whole What's This, which is my second favorite song from that film, happens. Again, beautifully animated sequence, so colorful, so bright, so cheerful, as, in a contrast to how dark and gloomy Halloween Town is, and still visually nice, I think, despite being dark and gloomy. It's still visually nice. But it makes you wonder, like, are they planning for Christmas all year round? Like, is Santa, like, checking his list more than twice? How many times is he checking the damn list? Do they have the Christmas tree and the Christmas lights up all year? Like, I'd imagine so. And just how do they interact with the real world? Like, how does Santa go from, like, the North Pole world to the real world to deliver the presents? Like, there's just a bunch of details that, you don't really think about because I don't think it's too important, but because they celebrate it to themselves, and at least in Halloween Town they do. And I think it would be interesting if they revisit. I think a lot of people agree that it would be interesting if they revisited the concept of the Nightmare Before Christmas world. Because we only got to see those two things. Like, there's a Thanksgiving world. Like, what? But anyway, on this piece, it was something that to me was really, really gratifying, I think, to do, because I was going back to more my cartoony roots, and I don't think I've actually ever drawn these characters before. Specifically Sally. I'm pretty sure I've never drawn Sally before. I might have doodled Jack Skellington at some point or another. And why both of them as opposed to just, like, one or the other? I honestly couldn't tell you. I think it lent itself for that, and also just so that we could have space for other more, like, cutesy characters as well. That's why we decided to include both of them in one drawing as opposed to, let's draw them separately. And I think that as a couple, honestly, I think that was, like, probably the weakest plot point in the movie, especially considering that you hardly ever really see them, like, say for a few scenes, you don't really see them interacting with each other much, so the romance between the two doesn't really make much sense. Especially, like, I can understand like a crush from Sally towards Jack. Like, I can understand that perfectly, but to me, like, a reciprocation of feelings from Jack towards Sally kind of doesn't make sense, and it feels a little forced, considering that throughout the whole movie, he doesn't really show much interest in Sally. He's just like, oh, you're my friend, and you're helping me out with this because you're so nice. But like, he's pretty much oblivious to all that. His only passion is like, I want to stop with the monotony of Halloween. I want to try a new holiday, and I'm going to be focused on this specifically. But like, he never shows any sort of, like, romantic feelings towards Sally, except towards the end where he's like, oh, I get it, you were always there for me. It's like, well, okay, yeah, but that doesn't mean you need to feel anything. It feels like it's out of left field to me. Like, I like the cuteness of Sally's feelings towards Jack. I think that is very cute, and like that's why she goes along with most of the, pardon the pun, batshit insane things Jack does, because she knows that what he's doing is wrong and weird and perhaps even stupid, and is trying to warn him to be careful, but he won't listen. He's being stubborn. But she goes along with it anyway, and I think that's cute. But again, like, Jack returning the feelings, I think, is a little forced. They should have at least had some more scenes with these two characters instead of having them separately. Other than that, I do still think it's a great movie. I like the characters in it. And I just love these designs. The simplicity of Jack Skellington and the somewhat complexity of Sally, I gotta say, because just looking at my reference and drawing her, I think this is the one drawing so far where it's like I don't really try to draw from my reference, but I'm using the reference exactly. But they're probably the most original poses, is what I'm meaning to say, that I've drawn so far. Again, so much black on Jack that it's fortunately, like, with a more scribble-like effect, I don't have to be so refined, and I can still make it look like his clothes are like sort of striped, mostly black with a little bit of white, so I can achieve that effect pretty well, I think. But I just didn't, like, as with most of my art, I don't really know where I'm going with it when I start out, and it's not until I, like, halfway through, I'm like, okay, I can set a scene here. And just the stitches on Sally, I love doing that. I thought it was so fun. Again, a great return to form after all the realism that I was doing with the movie monsters. Going into something that is cartoony, and especially like something that's cartoony and not my style, was really, gratifying and nice to do. Because I am still trying to go for the authentic, like, original style from the movie, the kind of Tim Burton-esque style, the big-ass eyes, the kind of tiny pupils. And I tried to do something original with it. I didn't really want it to be creepy, although I could have totally easily gone the creepy route. But it was just so much fun, and I can tell that drawing the rest of these from this week are going to be incredibly fun. I just loved it so much, and it actually surprised me how clean it was. I decided to add like a little butterfly at the end there, because I was like, well, why would Jack have that pose? Did he, like, hit himself with something? Like, I don't know. So I just decided to add a butterfly there, even if it looks a little bit out of place. But anyway, this is the final piece. I had to stretch a little for time there. This is the final piece. I actually really liked how it came out. I think that I could have made the because the characters are a little bit, like, out of focus, especially because there are two characters. Well, yeah, I guess out of focus would be the correct term, because there are two different characters in this piece. It's not as zoomed in as the portraits that I did were, so there's, like, a lot less detail, especially because they're cartoons. So, like, maybe a wider canvas would have worked better for this, but I'm trying to keep the canvas sizes consistent so as to, see what I can do with it. But personally, I really liked it. I think it's, despite me not, like, using Control-Z or anything, I do think it's pretty clean. I don't know. What do you think? Did you ever grow up with this movie? What do you think of it? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Why? Tomorrow we'll be diving into a movie that actually was directed by Tim Burton, but it wasn't an animated film, but you'll see what it is tomorrow. So until then, stay safe and stay awesome. This is Char5, signing off.